Greetings sailors and welcome to another random replay plucked from replayswows.com, and the reason why I've gone back this time is because I wanted a cruiser replay to show off, and I did actually receive one from one of my patrons, a rather good looking Cleveland game, at least by the score screen, except it was from the previous patch, so I couldn't play it because that is still very much an issue, unfortunately. So here we are with this completely random Atago B game, and it is being played here by Smiles. It's Smiles and some numbers. Smiles something, 809, 805, something like that. We're just going to call them Smiles anyway. The Atago, I don't really think I need to go into too much detail about. It is a pretty well-known ship at this point. It's been in the game since the beginning, pretty much, if you count the beginning as the public beta. In fact, it was in the closed beta even, because of course this was the ship that Wargaming put in to replace their initial offering of a premium cruiser, which was the Kitakami. And of course that has been tested again since relatively recently, but I have no idea if it will ever actually make it into the game. Although with the recent news we've had about changes to team damage, who knows, maybe they'll use that as an excuse to bring back the Kitakami. But I have no information about that, I hasten to point out. This is just, pure speculation on my part. So this is a bit of a rough start to this game. We skipped ahead by about 2.5 minutes while it was really just the initial positioning. And although the C cap is being contested and A was being contested, there's not that much movement happening at C because there's quite a lot of the enemy team, so that's a bit of a stalemate. And B was basically left alone up until that Akatsuki tried to go in against the German destroyer that's there and promptly got their butt handed to them, and then the other destroyer that was here at A got bum rushed by their the other team's German destroyer, because 2 of the 3 enemy destroyers are German, which means of course they have hydros. So although they were behind the rock, they actually had allies pushing up behind them and were able to take them out. And so the enemy team is well on the way to having all 3 caps, even if they're not actively getting points from C. This is not a good start to the game at all, and the fact that they are now starting to lose ships on top of that while the enemy is yet to lose a single one, that's not good. That's not good at all. And it looked like Smiles was coming over maybe to try and help out on this flank a bit, maybe get some sneaky shots on distracted battleships. But clearly they were thinking of withdrawing at this point, given that there is a push coming out of that cap, potentially led by a destroyer. But he's now being spotted by that mid destroyer, and immediately and sensibly popped their hydro in response. So there they are, Z46, and we're about to see why you don't underestimate German destroyer AP, because Atago has got a reasonable reload for a heavy cruiser, but it's still a heavy cruiser, and it's actually a little bit slower than a lot of its contemporaries. And that's giving this Z46 time to break out the AP shells. And because it's now going to take a 3rd salvo to finish this guy, look how much health he's losing. Potentially Smiles could have put the fire out here as well, but fire damage is the least of his concerns right now. That destroyer just took out half of his health, and it still isn't dead yet. It's going to take a 4th reload to get this guy. So there we go, finally dead, but that is quite a lot of health lost in the meantime. Fortunately though, this is that rare breed of tier 8 cruiser that does have a heal. In fact, it's the OG tier 8 cruiser with a heal, and so it's not that bad. It could be worse, but that's still quite a lot of health to have lost just versus a destroyer. And you could maybe understand his caution in not wanting to give broadside to the battleships that are pushing up there, but aside from that stray shot from the Izumo there, they've mostly been focused with the battleships that are in front of them. In fact, two of them just managed to annihilate each other with guns at the same time there. The good news is, though, that leaves the middle cap free. The enemy team has now lost quite a few ships themselves. They've also been losing ships around the sea cap as well, even though it looked like they had a few more ships to work with. And that's also where you can see Smiles' division mate in the Flint right now, so we don't know what kind of impact they had, but maybe the enemy team were just a bit too cocky there. They tried to push in, or they positioned themselves badly, gave broadsides at inopportune moments. We didn't get a direct view, so we don't know, but clearly they have lost a lot of ships over there, and that push out of the A cap has also not exactly gone as planned either. In fact, they still have an Izumo that's left alive. They lost their destroyer, and all that's left is the enemy Izumo and the Helena. So into the cap, time to stem some of the bleeding, which is, you know, a good idea right now. And they're also, I think, are they actively contesting C, or is C still blocked? I think C is blocked at the moment. But yeah, unfortunately, going in the cap has drawn the attention of the aircraft carrier, who happens to be right there. Well, that is both good news and bad news, because it means Smiles can shoot at them, but it also means that they have a really short turnaround on their planes, and even worse, that's an enemy Neptune that's just hove into view. Time for some AP shells, and the Neptune doesn't really seem to be angling or reacting here. It's possible that they are still focused on what's behind them, in which case they have blundered greatly, because yeah, they just lost a huge amount of health, and if he can land these further AP shells, there we go. So 6 citadels on that Neptune overall. A very good use of AP ammo there on a clearly distracted enemy. I'm imagining Smiles at this point would probably like to go unspotted once again, but yeah, here come the aeroplanes. Fortunately, the Izumo is not looking in their direction. They are focused on his own team's Izumo, but that Helena might pose a problem, because this does have decent armor when it's angled, but broadside even to a 6-inch cruiser, yeah, well, you saw what happened even versus 128mm destroyer AP. And granted, it's the German destroyer AP, so it's a bit better than the average, but still, yeah. But the Helena also seems to be firing that Izumo, so not the hugest threat right now. And if Smiles is lucky, this enemy cruiser player might not even have registered that there's a strong possibility of there being torps in the water, which of course we know for a fact that there are. So some extra aerial hits there, which have unfortunately managed to reset the cap, but crucially the cap is still being contested, so they are not losing points actively to this cap. And as a bonus, the Helena does actually also eat a torpedo, which is quite nice. Will maybe have sharpened their focus a bit in this direction, however. So maybe a chance to get this cap finally. We're only about 15 seconds away at this stage. Some speculative torps out. The enemy team does still have a fair old whack of points in terms of leading, but they do seem to be pretty much broken at this point in terms of their coherence. They're not really playing together at this stage very well. What's left of the enemy team is fairly well scattered. So some shots out on the now very low health Lexington. Try not to run aground there. And there we go, there's the kill. Very nice, and as a bonus, some of those torps will in fact hit the Alsace as well. So this is all looking pretty good. He's got the cap, the aircraft carrier's dead, and oh, hello, well, now we know where that Helena is as well. So Hydro out, just to maybe give in, oh, that's nasty, a bit of advance warning if they were going to come around hugging the island, but you know, it's not like they've got torpedoes. But yeah, there was clearly some Citadel hits in there. That was a big chunk of health. So we've had some good AP usage from both Smiles themselves, but also this Helena player on the enemy team. And it's always nice to see the correct, as it were, usage of AP shells in a cruiser, because sometimes they just get neglected in favour of all HE spam all the time. The Helena now, obviously, a little bit more wary about torpedoes. They've eaten one already. It's not clear if they're using hydro here or not. Potentially they would actually be within hydro range, I'm not sure, so we would have an icon on screen. Maybe they have it on cooldown, or more likely, because I don't know why they would have used hydro recently enough for it to be on cooldown, more likely they are running with defensive. Although actually, don't the US light cruisers get both? I can't recall. Somebody will correct me on that if I'm wrong. Maybe they did have both and they just, I don't know, maybe it was on cooldown for whatever reason. Who knows? Anyway, despite their evident caution, the Torps still found their mark, you know. They were trying to sneak into the cap there and flip it, because, you know, it's come down to being a fairly crucial thing to do at this stage. But I don't know that even if they had managed it and had managed to survive, that it could have made the biggest difference right now, because apart from the two Izumos who have been chasing each other, well, the red Izumo has been chasing the green Izumo from this point of this team's point of view for basically half the game now. But yeah, apart from them having their own little fight off along the B line, the rest of the team is now pushing towards the middle. Although for some reason there's an Iowa all the way down on the I line. Maybe they were being a bit overly cautious about the Kagero, but we obviously now know the Kagero's in B. So you can point back up towards the middle now, or you're just going to keep going down towards the J line. Who knows? Battleship players, am I right, you guys? Just, you know, battleship players, that's it. That's the joke. There was a brief moment of being spotted there by the enemy Kagero, though, so we know they must be towards this side of the cap, because, of course, this cruiser does have very good concealment. And Smiles themselves does actually wait until they've gotten the cap, and, in fact, there's cover between them before he risks taking a shot on the Alsace, which happily sets a fire. So, if that burns, that would be quite nice, but unfortunately, no. It does get set out, and I imagine at the moment Smiles would quite like that 5th kill, because that would be a Kraken. There is an opportunity here with the Kagero, though, who's being chased out by, I think, probably a combination of Flint Radar and Cossack Hydro, although I'm sure Cossack's Hydro is very short range. So some shots out. Sadly, it's his Flint div mate that gets the kill, and that also has got Smiles spotted, and that was very nearly the end of their ship, and you can see they were not particularly happy about that. But yeah, the game's pretty much over now, so it just remains to be seen whether they are going to be bold enough to try and get that final kill, or if they're going to decide that staying alive is the better thing. Now, there's a few more speculative Torp drops here. We've cut out a little bit as well. There's no way the Alsace is going to run into these. I think it was just a case of, you know, I'm just going to click the button and make the torpedoes go in that direction, because why not? But yeah, I did wonder if they were going to be bold enough to try and get the finishing blow to ninja the kill with their guns, but instead they're just sitting out the dying seconds with their torpedo launcher. So yeah, no Kraken, sadly. That might have been quite a nice end to this one, a Kraken with the final ship, but still, that's 123,000 damage with 4 kills in a tier 9 game, and a really strong showing for the Atago. And you know, with the capping, the damage done, that was a very, very, very healthy 3,137 base XP. Managing to break 3,000 base XP in a game is definitely a worthy achievement in its own right, and certainly doing it whilst not top tier in a cruiser is yeah, laudable. So I think we can count this as a pretty well played game overall. I don't know if there were any significant missteps in that one, and certainly some smart choices of ammo and seizing of opportunities, because a less bold and a less stealthy cruiser might have hesitated to try and grab that mid-cap. But no, Smiles went for it, and between that and the collapse of the enemy team at the C-cap, I think that was what kind of really clinched it. So yeah, a fairly crucial contribution to that game, I would say. So that's it for this replay. If you enjoyed it, you can do all the usual things down underneath the video, and of course, as always, stay tuned for more.